Similar scene in Selma, as you can see from these aerial drone shots right here. Roofs ripped off the buildings, homes and lives turned upside down. Reporter Megan Scarano has details.
It's a lot to take. I've been trying to salvage what I can all day, and it's just hard. It's hard.
Like so many people in Selma, Coretta Smith came home to find her house destroyed.
I'm in shock. Don't know where I'm going right now. I'm in shock.
You don't know where you're going to go tonight?
No. I'll probably call a friend or get a hotel room, but it's no place like home, you know?
Just down the street, her neighbors, the Woods, already at work, picking up the pieces after the storm.
When they said Selma hit bad, it hit bad.
Hit so bad, it's unrecognizable.
It don't look like home no more.
No, sure don't.
Our town is destroyed.
Photos of families and tin roofs hanging from power lines are just some of the damage left in the streets of downtown Selma. But it's riding out the storm that may leave the biggest mark on some.
It scared me, baby. But the Lord picked me up, but he brought me back down. Picked the whole house up, but I told to the Lord, I said, I ain't ready to go. Please take care of me for my children and grand.
Authorities say the damage throughout the city is massive, and there were reports of 4 injuries.
That storm in Selma was big, very big. Meteorologist James Spann in Birmingham was tracking the storms all day for WBMA TV. As soon as he saw the storm on the radar, he knew it was powerful and made sure viewers took cover.
Wow. Goodness, that looks nasty. Whew. So we have potential for what could be oh, Lord have mercy. That's very, I would say this most likely is a large destructive tornado that's coming up into Selma, all right? And again, you've got to be sheltered if you're in Selma. If you know anybody that happens to be in the city of Selma, give them a call. And if they get mad, they can get mad at me.
And you know, one person was injured after a tornado touched down about 30 miles north of Mobile, Alabama. 3 homes were either destroyed or damaged. Reporter Karis Harmon continues our coverage in Mount Vernon.
Says the Mount Vernon area is no stranger to tornadoes, but he's never seen it quite like this.
We had one probably 35, 36 years ago come through. So it was bad, but it wasn't this bad.
Down power lines, trees uprooted, and entire homes ripped apart.
You could feel the suction of the house moving a little bit.
That had to be really scary. What were the emotions and feelings going through your mind as this was happening?
This might be the end. You know, it was devastating.
Fortunately, no one in the area was killed from the storm. He says he's thankful for technology because if he wouldn't have gotten alerted on his phone, he would have never known it had touched down near him. Another Mount Vernon man says the same thing.
I got the alert on my phone that a tornado warning was going to hit, and just out of nowhere, I heard a sound I never heard before. It sounded like a freight train come through here, and the wind picked up so strong. I had to jump out, and I ran out because everything was shaking.
That storm system then moved into Georgia. The winds overturning this truck right here in Spalding County, about 35 miles south of Atlanta. Several trees, you can see it here, were also knocked down, blocking roads across the region. Emergency officials are headed back there after sunrise. They should be there now. All severe weather watches and warnings in the south have been canceled. As we've told you, tornado season is 12 months a year. They are more common in the spring, but can happen really anytime. We asked meteorologist Dan Threlkeld to explain how these storms come together.
Some people ask, when is the tornado season for our area? Well, forget about the calendar. It can happen any time of year if the conditions are ripe, and boy, they sure were. Colder air flooded across parts of the Rockies and into the plains where the temperatures had been 15 to 20 degrees cooler than normal. In the south and southeast, very warm and also high dew point values, very moist air. And as that colder air fought it out with the warm air, the result is severe weather. Hail, lightning, gusty winds, and numerous tornadoes. The moister the air is, the better your chance of having severe weather. Dew point values had been very, very high across the area. power outages. We'll know the full extent of the storms once the National Weather Service site survey teams check out all the damage, and there's a lot to check out. We saw numerous tornadoes, lightning, and hail, all associated with the storm system that made its way through the south and southeast. So again, if someone asks you when's the tornado season, tell them it starts in January and it ends in December. I'm meteorologist Dan Threlkeld.
Wow, and in California, as you can see right here, cleanup is still underway after a massive storm pounded the region. The latest system swamped the state with widespread flooding, mudslides, downed trees and power lines, and completely washed out roads. Thousands are still without power throughout the state. Homes and businesses were heavily impacted. Cloud9 Collections, located north of Fresno, was nearly totally destroyed.
Everything was, I saw floating Converse and clothing and a lot of really expensive equipment that's just gone now. So we're hoping to salvage what we can.
The storm has been blamed for 19 deaths, and officials say cleanup could actually take weeks here. But another system is heading to that area. For a look at what's to come, we turn now to meteorologist Jordan Evans.
Yeah, California is no prone to the atmospheric phenomenon known as atmospheric rivers. And to get multiple rounds that last weeks, I mean, it's definitely not the most common thing. So we do have another one coming in this afternoon, and then the main batch arrives tonight into tomorrow. So we're talking about heavy rounds of rain, snowfall by the foot once again. Keep in mind, snowpack up in the Sierras already at 200% of normal for this time of year, and it's only early January. Rain amounts, this will mainly be focused from San Francisco up to the north. In terms of the snow totals, again, by the foot, 3 to 4 isolated spots up to 5 feet of snow in the highest peaks. Where's the good news with this? Well, it's the drought, and we're looking at drought that goes away once we get more rain, and that will eventually fill up the reservoirs and restore some of the water supply. Angela?
And coming up on the National Weather Desk, how is a drought monitor created, especially one that says California? We'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Some wet weather in the Northeast this morning. Here we are, 7 o'clock or so. Temps running in the 50s for some areas. And you get the general trend of what's happening this afternoon. That rain is moving out. We still have a little bit of a wintry mix over extreme northern areas here. But cooler air is starting to move into New York. We're in the 30s and 20s off to the west, 50s for parts of New England. And the colder temperatures will invade for Saturday. Clouds may be stubborn on Saturday with highs in the 20s and 30s.
I'm meteorologist Jonathan Myers, and here's a look at the Mid-Atlantic region up and down the 95 corridor during the day on Friday. Temperatures kind of stifled a little bit as our latest weather maker, a cold front, moves through. High temperatures in the upper 40s and low to mid 50s. Pretty much where we start the day is where we're going to end the day as well, as some sunshine returns as that system moves offshore. Dry and overall nice with breezes picking up. Chillier weather certainly arrives, though, for the weekend. That's the scene here.
I'm meteorologist Vitas Reed. Here's a look at your southeast forecast highs for today. Looking at 39 in Nashville, 44 Atlanta, 55 Raleigh. Colder air moving in behind a cold front that pushed through the other day. It looks like we'll see that continue to push on down through parts of Florida. Some spotty showers possible in the afternoon around South Florida. Changing the temperatures quite a bit, bringing much colder air across the southeast and parts of Florida into the lower 40s for overnight lows on Friday night and then into Saturday morning.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
And welcome back, everyone. Well, NOAA releases this graphic weekly right here, showing the parts of the country experiencing drought conditions. This one was released only yesterday. As you can see, even after weeks of heavy rain, parts of California are still in drought. You can see the colors right here, red and yellow. Emily Gracie spoke to the author of this drought monitor to find out how it's created.
Yeah, so it's a snapshot in time of the current drought conditions across the country on multiple time scales. So we're not only looking at drought over the past few weeks or past few months, but even dating back multiple years, such as the drought that's ongoing in California that dates back to the 2019-2020 winter. There's many different indicators that we use: precipitation, soil moisture, stream flow, vegetative health.
What's been the reasoning for the drought out west?
Consecutive La Nina winters, which typically result in drier and warmer than normal weather across Southern California and the Southwest. Yeah, big reason for the long-term drought out there.
I think over the past couple of weeks, people have been confused when seeing the drought monitor and looking at California. Can you explain why the flooding in California has not fixed the drought conditions there?
Yes. Yeah. Great question. You can have flooding and drought at the same time. When we have these long-term drought conditions, multi-year drought, you have low reservoir levels, low groundwater levels. So it's going to take some time to replenish the largest reservoirs in California and also the groundwater. And also would note that the 3-year time period, 2020 through 2022, was the second driest 3-year time period on record for California. So this wasn't just like, somewhat of a dry 3-year pattern. This was a very, very dry pattern. So, this has been very wet 3-week period for California, but yeah, it'll take quite a bit more to overcome that 3-year drought.
Well, we have a longer version of this interview posted on our YouTube page. We also have tons of other interviews and cool weather videos there as well. To see any of it, just search the National Weather Desk on YouTube and subscribe. You can also scan the QR code on the bottom left of your screen to connect with us on your favorite social media platforms. California has been walloped with lots of rain and floods the past 2 weeks due to a series of atmospheric rivers. And in higher elevations, it's been snowy. Let's go to Macon, where meteorologist Ryan Mirando explains why they'll get so much more of it.
Notice the band of clouds over the Pacific that's moving to the northeast. That's our atmospheric river, or what some of us call the Pineapple Express. That's because it starts in Hawaii and then moves out to the west coast, bringing them all the wet weather. As the storms start to approach over the mountains, it falls as rain before it gets there. By this time of the year, they get usually around 5.5 inches, but some areas have gotten to over 14 inches of rain with all of the atmospheric rivers that they've been hit by. When it moves up into the mountains, into the higher elevations, it falls as snow. So far this season, they've gotten 4 feet of snow, one of the biggest snowpacks they've had in 10 plus years. And we're expecting another 50 inches of snow to fall into the mountains in the Sierra Nevada. Pretty incredible out there. So really putting this into perspective, this is a regular car here, normally sitting around 5 or so feet tall. Even if we stack 2 cars on top of each other, when the snow begins to fall again with their next atmospheric river, they could be getting a combined snowfall upwards of 100 inches that would completely cover me and almost both of these cars combined. It may not be all bad though, as the West Coast is in a pretty severe drought, and some of this rain and snow could help with some of those conditions.
The storms in California, with all their rain and snow, have not been all bad news. As we mentioned earlier, they did put a very small dent in the state's drought. It's also good news for local salmon populations. Meteorologist Kristen Clark explains from Seattle, Washington.
When we discuss the impacts of La Nina and El Nino, we often talk about the human element on land: wildfires, flooding, drought. But El Nino and La Nina also have an impact on marine life. I love fishing. Last year, I had the opportunity to catch Chinook salmon off the coast of Vancouver Island. Salmon reside in the cold Pacific waters from Baja California to Alaska's Arctic rivers, where salmon spawn in fresh water but migrate to the ocean. El Nino and La Nina patterns affect salmon by changing the cold water habitats salmon thrive in. El Nino tends to result in a warm, dry winter with warmer water near the coast. Therefore, following an El Nino winter, the snowpack is smaller, with less cold water flowing into watersheds, degrading salmon's vital freshwater habitats, which could be detrimental to the West Coast salmon population. However, following a La Nina winter, salmon across the Pacific Northwest get a boost in stream flows from a cool, wet pattern that results in more freshwater habitats. La Nina conditions are expected to continue for the rest of the winter, so here's hoping for a healthy salmon population this season.
And we move now to Wisconsin, where there's not a ton of snow, but it's getting cold enough for ice fishing. Already, however, one person had to be rescued after falling into the ice. Now officials there are stressing safety. Brady Meyer has more from Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Every year, fire officials stress the importance of ice safety.
Don't trust any ice. There is no safe ice out there.
As ice fishing season continues, local fire departments are urging people to be cautious before they get on the ice and before they start drilling any holes.
But if you do venture out onto the ice, there's flotation device suits for ice fishing are great things to have. Talk to the local fishing clubs and get information from them. Talk to the people that are out on the ice routinely, because they're going to tell you places to avoid and what the thicknesses are.
Nina Menasha Assistant Fire Chief Jim Peglow says every year his department responds to roughly 8 to 10 calls of someone falling in the ice.
Unfortunately, it's more common than what you think. You probably don't hear about all of the rescues, everybody falling in.
Many ice fishers understand the risks and make double checking the ice their top priority.
I usually come out with a hand chisel, check it, make sure, or look, see if anybody's out there. If there's guys out there, it's usually pretty safe. You get some guys that are careless that want to go out on 2-3 inches of ice, but not me. It's got to be 6 inches before I'll go out.
Fire department staff want to prevent people falling in altogether. However, they know it can happen at any time or place. If you do fall through the ice, firefighters say you should try to pull yourself out and then roll away instead of immediately standing up. That helps disperse the weight on the ice.
Avalanches are another winter season hazard, but what causes an avalanche to occur? Meteorologist Ron Zan explains.
Deadly avalanches occur every year when hikers and skiers avoid the warnings to stay out of the backcountry during high avalanche danger. There are 4 factors in triggering an avalanche. 1, a steep slope, then a layer of snow, and a weak layer of snow underneath it. Then comes a trigger, something causing that snow to move. An avalanche can travel at up to 55 miles an hour, and an hour after one occurs, there's just a 1 in 3 chance of someone trapped in that avalanche being found alive.
And how is this for an exciting discovery? A new planet. NASA says this is an illustration of an exoplanet called, right now, LHS 47b. We'll be right back.
Well, a very good Friday morning, everyone. I'm meteorologist Andrew Buck-Michael. Pretty quiet across the plains for the day today, but we got some light snow and showers out here across the Ohio Valley. A little bit of lake effect snow as well for the day today. Moving into tomorrow, looks pretty good for us on Saturday. It's going to be chilly for most of the Midwest. We do have some 50s across the southern part of the plains. Then as we get into your Sunday, look at this. A nice little dry weekend for us on the way. Again, chilly for us on Sunday, but most of our temperatures at least a little bit warmer.
Good morning. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. Here's a look at your regional weather. We're starting off a little chilly this morning, into the 20s and 30s up across the north, 40s out across the rest of the region. We're looking at a lot of dry air moving in, no clouds, lots of sunshine. So that means a big warm up all the way from South Texas, all the way back up into North Texas, where we'll be in the 60s for the most part. Everybody else into the 50s. The next big cold front heads our way next week. That'll bring more cool air and a chance for rain. I'm meteorologist Alex Garcia. That's a look at your regional weather.
Well, hi there, everybody, and a good Friday morning to you. I'm meteorologist Shannon O'Donnell. Current weather maker on the West Coast is yet another atmospheric river, and this one's pushing all the way up the I-5 corridor today from Redding, California, on up into Bellingham, Washington. You'll see how that moves across the landscape, making way for the next one due into California, unfortunately, this weekend. Temps today across the West anywhere from the 30s in Jackson to the 60s in L.A. And that's the scene from here.
You are watching the National Weather Desk.
Have you ever seen a lightning strike that looks like it goes from the ground to the skies? Well, you're not crazy. That does actually happen. Let's take a look at how lightning travels with our Emily Gracie.
Have you ever seen lightning and wondered if it was traveling from the cloud to the ground or the opposite direction? Well, the answer is actually both. To understand this, you need to know how lightning forms. So basically, during a thunderstorm, a bunch of negative and positive charges start building up in a cloud. As you know, opposites attract. So when those negative charges at the bottom of the cloud get strong enough, they rush toward the positive charge of the Earth. Now that positive charge starts reaching up toward that negative charge in a return stroke that we see as a lightning bolt. Upward moving lightning strikes are triggered by that same process, but are usually associated with a tall structure on the ground or even a plane flying below a storm. Either way, they are both extremely dangerous, and when the thunder roars, you should definitely go indoors. For the National Weather Desk, I'm meteorologist Emily Gracie.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be back here Monday checking in on the next storm system hitting the West Coast. I'm Angela Brown. Have a great weekend.